story?
So the day that I got injured, we were doing a route clearance mission down a road that nobody had been down in a while. No Americans had been down in for probably, I think it was 6 or 7 months. We were escorting a bunch of 912s out to a Polish fob to pick up their broken equipment. So essentially a bunch of semis. We were escorting semis out to go pick up broken equipment and bring it back. On our way out there, we got RPG'd twice, and I think we found 6 IEDs before we had one that hit one of our trucks. Nobody got injured. It just blew the back axle off of the truck. And long story short, they split those 3 guys that were in that vehicle up. We got one of them in our truck. We got to the fob late that night. We spent the night, picked up the equipment that we needed to pick up, and then we tried finding another way out. But that was the only road in and out from this fob, essentially. So we knew that we were going to have a bunch of trouble when we went back. So we had Polish air support with us. We didn't have any American air support because there wasn't any within close enough distance. Essentially, we had these semis that were with us. There was the Polish military with us, and then we were up in the front getting rid of anything that got in the way. And I think before we actually got injured, or before we actually got hit, we had found 4, I think it was, other IEDs that day that we'd gotten rid of. We pulled up to this area, a bunch of open fields on the side. There wasn't really much of anything around, which is kind of a weird place. There's a few trees, a couple little, drainage ditch type things. And our guy in our Husky had actually pulled up, and he drove over the spot where the IED was. I don't know if you know anything about a Husky, but it's essentially a mine detector on wheels. He'd gotten a ding on it, but wasn't sure about it, so he did probably the worst thing he ever could do, and he actually backed up to see if he could go over it again and get it again. You got lucky once, so going over the second time is kind of a dumb idea, but he didn't hear anything the second time, so we ended up carrying on, and as soon as our front end hit the, I think it was there was essentially a primer and then the main charge, because our mine roller had gotten hit, and then the main charge went off underneath the base of the vehicle. I believe they said it was somewhere around like a 500-pound IED that was buried. It picked the truck up, dropped it down into a pretty large crater. All of us in the vehicle. The gunner ended up having both of his legs crushed in between the racks that held all our ammunition in the back. I couldn't feel my legs initially when I came to. And then our TC, I was driving the vehicle. The TC, he broke his left leg in like 7 places. It was kind of finagled around, and he ended up rupturing a disc in his back, and one of his ribs broke and punctured his spleen. So they were able to get him out, and then our gunner out. They took us to the closest fob. I think it was Fob Shank was the name of it, if I remember right. I remember going in, seeing the doctor. I was kind of in and out a lot just because of the pain and whatnot. So the doctor, we did whatever, and then they transferred me to the next place they were going to. And the biggest thing I remember, and it was a terrible experience, was the airfields over there were like that giant gravel that you put down before you pave a road, essentially. So it's pitch black, middle of the night, and these guys are carrying me on a stretcher, and the guy in the front loses his footing, drops the stretcher with me on it, and all the guys carrying it fell down. And I guess one of the doctors told me that it was probably one of the most curdling screams that you've ever heard, because it was just the most painful thing that I think I've ever experienced. Like, he's like, there was a Black Hawk there waiting to have you put on it, and you could hear nothing but me screaming over the helicopter. So, actually got to meet the guy later on down the line, one of the doctors that worked on me, because he ended up getting taken to Walter Reed because he ended up getting injured too, and he specifically remembers me because of that specific event where they dropped the stretcher. So it's kind of an interesting, fun story. So they took me to the Kabul Air Base, which is where they actually did my surgery. So they did a 7-level spinal fusion. I ended up having 2 shattered vertebrae in my back, fractured 4 others. and a bunch of other just little issues. My bottom lip was over my teeth when they pulled me out, and then I got a gash on the back of my head, things like that. So, but since I couldn't feel my legs, they couldn't medevac me to like Germany right away. So they ended up doing my surgery in Afghanistan. Once I was able to be transported, then I went to launch school. I was only there for a day, I believe it was, if that, and then got on a flight, went to Walter Reed, and I spent 11 and a half months at Walter Reed doing physical therapy, being able to learn to, do everything again. So being in the service, it's probably one of the best things I've ever done with my life. It gave me a purpose. I had something to do every day when I woke up. You get to see different cultures. You get to see different ways that people live.